We're at a critical point in the market right now, ladies and gents. Bitcoin has managed to see basically its previous all-time high, and it's running to attack it again, which makes complete sense because this is all happening within the context of a brand new S&P 500 all-time high. So far, this is all pretty much exactly what we were expecting. I definitely would have wanted to see Bitcoin a little bit further ahead by now, but I'm not worried about that because of where the S&P 500 is. The fact that this market, this index has managed to punch in a brand new all-time high, I think has really, really helped crypto pull itself back up a little bit. We saw lows down at about 118K just yesterday, and right now we are back in business, ladies and gents, which is absolutely sick because Bitcoin at its current levels is starting to lose dominance, okay? Bitcoin's dominance has been dropping. It's dropping right now as we speak. It is all popping off, ladies and gents. Smash up the likes if you're hyped up for this like I am right here. We are seeing that big drop happening for Bitcoin right here on its dominance, and what's really interesting about all of this is if we take a look at Total 2 so that we can just really understand where the money is actually flowing in the market right now. Total 2 is skyrocketing higher right now. So what does that mean? This is the total crypto market cap excluding Bitcoin, meaning that while Bitcoin has seen a really, really small drop, and we'll show you that in just a minute, Total 2 is going up, dominance is going down, so money is actually moving into the crypto space. It's just not moving into Bitcoin. And that is actually a really good sign because that shows us optimism, right? If Bitcoin is going to be the safest asset in the game, but people are speculating on riskier coins, then that tells us that there's an appetite for taking risk on, right? That's a really important concept that I think a lot of people don't even think about. But if you want to understand how money truly moves in and out of these markets, and that's what we do here, if you're new to the channel, this is all about grounded, realistic technical analysis. If you want to learn about that stuff, if you want to have that kind of perspective, then what you really need to understand is what makes money move, okay? And if people are showing with their money that they're willing to take a little bit more risk on, that is going to be a very clear sign of optimism. And it's no surprise that that lines up perfectly with this S&P 500 break of its all-time high. And like I said, there is that news of Trump meeting Putin in Alaska in just a couple of days from now, which I think is absolutely massive because it definitely shows global tensions could be simmering a little bit, or I should say could be settling a little bit, and that can definitely lead to better trade and better market conditions and so on and so forth. So definitely something which I think is fantastic. As far as where I think this can go, this is where things get explosive. We could be looking at, 123, 130K, 140K, and so on. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But what does this range look like? So we had this really nicely defined range that sits between 116.9 up to about 120K, 119.6, and this is a really, really good price level. Bitcoin spent a lot of time bouncing up around in this level. It had a big deviation and then managed to reclaim this level right here and then shoot straight above it. We've then found ourselves back inside, but there's so much support in this range that Bitcoin was able to bounce off without falling down to the very bottom, which is actually not something we were expecting. I was personally saying that, if we fall below this level, we could be seeing this level, but we did end up finding some interim support instead, which is absolutely fantastic. That's exactly what we want to see. Let's actually throw some fibs on this because I haven't actually done that yet, and I'm curious what these fibs are looking like. Yeah, there we go. We bounced off the 382 Fibonacci, which is more or less exactly what we're expecting here anyway. A lot of confluence building up in this exact same range as well. So I think that this definitely continues to line up to paint that exact same picture here, ladies and gents, that we have got a very, very bullish chart that essentially, is finding support, perhaps even prematurely compared to where we might expect it, which is really, really good. And then that did manage to produce the bounce up for Bitcoin. Now, the other thing that I want you guys to kind of be aware of, to be cognizant of, is just, kind of where exactly the levels are in this range. And we can do this by taking a fixed range volume profile. And, first of all, we've got the point of control more or less exactly where Bitcoin bounced. So again, no surprises there whatsoever. But it's also the spikes here that I think are really interesting. Like there was a little bit of a spike in volume right here for Bitcoin's VPVR, and this is going to sit somewhere between basically 119 and 118.6 as a potential kind of support zone for Bitcoin, and that is exactly what Bitcoin ended up using to bounce up anyway, which is fantastic. And from there, Bitcoin has now managed to hit its value area high as well on this very same chart. So we're finding support and resistance exactly where we'd be wanting it to happen, but that's all happening inside of a very, very bullish kind of overall stance, especially, like I said, with Total 2 moving up, which I think is, very, very powerful to tell us that sentiment is actually pretty good and people are willing to kind of risk their money right now in the markets, which means that we could be seeing a lot more upside. But I think the other thing that's really important to keep in mind is that we found support off, kind of some of these earlier levels, right? Like we could have penetrated lower, found support down at like 117.6, for example, but we didn't do that. We found support higher up, which is a really, really good sign. It could mean that we're kind of starting to get ready to basically be done with this range and get ready to kind of, do something a little bit more interesting at higher price levels. And that's all going to depend on flipping this level right now that we're stuck at, this level at 119.6. This has been a pretty, honestly kind of formidable resistance level. I mean, it ended up resulting in quite a big drop over here. So definitely, we have seen some pretty nasty swings coming off this, resistance level that we're still stuck at right now. But if we can get a bounce, and especially if we can kind of, like, just back test it and get a little bit of support off this level, that would be a really, really strong sign for this market for us to know that we could be seeing much more upside to follow after that. Now, we've got a couple of highs that are interesting to look at. The first high is going to be right here at 120.2, the second at 122.2, and the third, of course, at the all-time high at 123.2. And what's really, really important to keep in mind now is that if Bitcoin can get above each of these levels, we're going to start setting higher highs within this trend. So I'm less concerned about this one here, but it would be really good for the ultra short-term image. If we can get above this level, then we're clearly trending up. We're clearly doing quite well. This pullback, while perhaps it wasn't welcome by many people, it was definitely healthy and good for the market. And we did see shorts getting stopped out on that drop as well, which is we did see longs getting stopped out on that drop as well, which is one of the key things we want to see. I've actually got that painted for you guys right here, right? Just all throughout this move, you saw open interest going down, and that's in the direction of short. So a lot of long positions ending up closing here. And then we did see a build up of long positions later on after that, and they've continued to build up. So I think that's going to be a risk factor, but I don't think it's a major risk factor, especially considering that we've done the bigger swings now. And so if we are able to get above, this local high that we've got at 120.2, that's probably going to make it very easy to rise very quickly up to 122K again. And bear in mind that, the only price action Bitcoin has ever had in this price range is here on screen. Bitcoin hasn't traded in these price levels ever before this, ever. And so if we're able to get above a level like this, it's a vacuum, right? Like you go straight up or straight down with very few exceptions. You go straight up, straight down. So I would be expecting something similar to play out again today, or tomorrow, whenever it happens, where, if we do kind of get above this level, it's probably going to be a really quick move up to that next level. And then again, a really quick move up to the next level, because there's no real, price action that's developed in these ranges. So I would imagine that the resistance should be very thin. It's not me imagining it. That's just typically how it works. And so, if that does continue, that's going to give us a really, really clear kind of massive gap that Bitcoin could kind of bridge and cross. And then, essentially we're rallying, toward all-time highs again. Now, what's really interesting is we've got this pattern here that I spoke to you guys about quite a bit, and we ended up falling out of it, so I got a little bit less interested in it, but we did recover it, and we covered that recovery here on this YouTube channel. But what's really interesting about this is if we just kind of stretch this out a little bit, look, it's kind of cheating, but it's really not, in my opinion, because we're so close anyway. We did end up getting that really nice bounce off this level here, which kind of back tests our previous resistance level, which, bear in mind, this level's been resistance for Bitcoin from this point up until the kind of breakout day. We even had a little bit of resistance, which is at this point over 3 weeks. So I think definitely a very, very good sign that Bitcoin managed to get that kind of bounce off this level. And we've already covered this quite a bit on this YouTube channel. Those of you that are subscribed are going to be quite familiar with these ideas, but if we want to extrapolate targets, it might look something a little bit like this, just kind of measuring the size of the initial rally, and then putting that at the bottom of the channel where we kind of started this move up. And this does put us at a speculative target of $138,000, which is absolutely fantastic. And these are the kind of price levels that we could end up seeing if Bitcoin does basically start breaking some of these local highs. Like I said, it starts with 120.2, but if we can get above that, I think the other two highs, this one right here at 122.4 and this one right here at 123.2, I think both of these are going to be quite easy for Bitcoin to break, if we do end up breaking our current local top, because like I said, I mean, there's a lot of bullish momentum right now. There's Bitcoin dominance that's dropped a little bit. Bear in mind, this thing can go back up, right? So what's going to end up happening if this does go back up, similar to what happened over here literally just 2 days ago, is that we are going to be seeing potentially a lot of altcoins getting sold and that money moving back into Bitcoin. And if that happens, that's going to end up pumping Bitcoin again anyway, and we might end up see Bitcoin's dominance kind of ticking up as well. So we really got to see how that works. This is a big drop for Bitcoin dominance, and it happened really quickly. So It doesn't have to go this way. Like, it could definitely be that Bitcoin dominance just keeps sliding lower. But given that we've seen Bitcoin dominance shoot up every time Bitcoin starts rallying, I definitely think that, we're not done with that trend yet. I mean, we're clearly not done with that trend yet. The argument would be that we're finally going to change that right now. And I'm not making that argument. I'm not making the argument that Bitcoin dominance is going to stop moving up when Bitcoin rallies hard. I think that we're not done with that kind of phase in this market yet. So if this does turn into a big rally, that is probably going to result in a bit of a recovery for Bitcoin dominance, which again is going to print for us some really, really nice opportunities in the altcoin market as well. I mean, Ethereum is just on fire right now, sitting at $4,500 here, getting very close to that previous all-time high from 2021. Now, of course, please bear in mind, ladies and gents, adjusted for inflation, these coins are not doing as well as they look. Okay, there's been a lot of inflation since 2021. And that is not something people are taking into account when they look for the same exact price levels. I know that, it's almost a little bit of an unrealistic way to look at it, because if that's how you view everything always, then you kind of need a completely different scale to view charts. But I do think it's especially important when there's such a big, this is a 4-year time gap. So it would be wrong to not be cognizant of these facts anyway. You know what I mean? Like the fact that, there's been so much inflation, if you just kind of start celebrating and running laps, about how Ethereum's kind of, starting to break that high, when in reality Ethereum might be, as low as here, adjusted for inflation, for example. That just helps us. I think what's really important for this is that it helps us understand how much higher it can go, because I do fully expect Ethereum to rally very hard during this bull market. I've been saying that for many, many, many months at this stage. We had, the best analysis on Ethereum out of anywhere that I've seen for sure. And it was certainly highly, highly accurate for this market. And I've no doubt that we're going to continue to do that. I'll do my best. Obviously, I can't make any promises. But, if that is going to be the case, then yeah, 100%. I think that these are really strong indications that, we could end up kind of continuing to rally really hard after breaking the all-time high. Of course, if that's going to happen, because nothing is guaranteed. But against Bitcoin, it's looking really good, and it's closing in on that next macro level of resistance at 0.4 BTC per token. So we'll see how that looks if Ethereum can manage to pull itself up there. And altcoins across the board are doing really well. Here's Solana finally starting to wake up. It's got a really interesting kind of triple top that it's fighting right now. It's actually gotten above that triple top here. So that's absolutely fantastic, getting that breakout right there. Solana against Bitcoin also doing very, very well. Obviously not up by a massive, kind of percentage from the lows, but still moving. It's up by 7%, to be fair. That's definitely pretty big. And then we've got others that are obviously stars of the show, like XRP, also gaining some ground against Bitcoin. Again, nothing crazy. XRP against Bitcoin up by 3% from low to high. But, these coins, they do move in their own time. I know a couple of people kind of get frustrated by this, but a lot of these coins have a life of their own. You really need to study, how these coins behave and how they behave in relation to Bitcoin, because that's going to help you kind of set your expectations and avoid being disappointed. Because, if you're feeling emotions like disappointment, you're going to be one step away from making, some sort of like revenge trade decision and so on. And we know very well that those things are very bad. We definitely don't want to be kind of caught in some of those traps there. But ladies and gents, there's a lot more that I can cover. I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm going to have to save that for those of you that are subscribed for the next video. We'll cover the rest of this later on. I think the big thing to watch is going to be the S&P 500 moving forward. If anything big develops in the next few hours, we'll be here again. We'll even be live as well. So make sure that you are subscribed with that bell icon checked so that you do get notified of our live streams when they go up. If you want to check out some of the best exchanges in the game, you get a ton of free cash that you can trade with when you start trading using these links in the description down below. So check them out if you're not from a restricted region. We've got a phenomenal one-to-one program here. It lasts 12 weeks. Get yourself the details on that if you think you'd be interested in that. And make sure you like, subscribe, tick the bell, do all that good stuff. Standard outro stuff. And we'll see you all in the next. Oh, there we go. 120k. We've just popped above 120k. Fantastic.